Good morning, damn fam. Today, recording day is Thursday, July 9th, 2026. And on today's Daily Beaver Morning Show, we are going to talk about the end of the NATO summit, how it wrapped up, and the Prime Minister being off to Saudi Arabia. We are going to have a little bit of economic news, a grab bag of stuff from the economy, and a little bit of labor stuff. And we are, if we have time, going to continue our exploration into the phone calls coming from inside the house that are seem to be questioning how long Pierre can remain leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. So grab your favorite bevy because here we go.
Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 6 and episode number 944 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Oh, Canada. Always 100% Canadian and always, of course, beaverific. Today, recording day is Thursday, July 9th, 2026, and it is a lovely day here at the Beaver Lodge. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And not with me, as usual, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast's founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. I had a little glitch there. Damn fam, how is your mental health doing today? I am doing very well, thank you. Although I am seeing here in the chat from Kit Uncover, sad news, Bonnie Tyler has died at the age of 75. Oh, darn. She had a couple of bangers out there. Yeah, I was a fan. I mean, I wasn't so much of a fan that I wouldn't listen to her other stuff. I did listen once because I didn't remember that she had done "It's a Heartache." I'm not sure if she was the first or if she was the one who wrote it, but I did know it, and so that's when I got a sense that there was like some country in her roots, and that's almost made like Total Eclipse of the Heart and Holding Out for a Hero. Um, so different, I guess, from everything else that had been known before, because those were like very 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 big production numbers, which sign number 127.4 that this beaver was going to grow up fabulous. So way back in 1984, it's like, oh yeah, I love all the drama of this song. Being fabulous. Yeah, indeed. And since we're speaking of that as well, um, related to us here in Canada, Tommy Hunter passed away as well over the past few days at the age of 89. I believe it was from something uh, cancer related, if I remember the news articles on radio or podcast, radio, CBC, right? Well enough. But according to Jackson Weaver of CBC News, Canada's country gentleman, Tommy Hunter, the celebrated musician whose professional career spanned from the 1950s into the early 2010s, has died. The singer and guitarist died Thursday of natural causes. Entertainment promoter and manager Brian Edwards confirmed to CBC News. Hunter was 89. Born on March 20th, 1937 in London, Ontario, Hunter got an early start as an entertainer. He began taking guitar lessons at around 9 years old, which soon led to him booking gigs, playing in churches, and eventually landing on the radio. He joined CBC's Country Hoedown in 1956 as a rhythm guitarist before making his biggest mark hosting The Tommy Hunter Show, which I did watch, which debuted as a radio show before transitioning to television. That series ran for 27 years, going off the airwaves in 1992. A mainstay in the Canadian broadcast and music landscape, its near 3 decade run was among the most successful in North America and even extended to US viewers via a Nashville network syndication. Throughout its history, it attracted the star powered names of Gordon Lightfoot, who had earlier made his mark as a dancer on Country Hoedown, along with Loretta Lynn, Anne Murray, and Johnny Cash. Hunter's early career finds also helped build what would later become household names, including Garth Brooks, a 14-year-old Shania Twain, then known as Ellie Twain, and even CBC's The World This Hour longtime anchor Tom Harrington as a child. And I believe Shania Twain, if I have not mistaken, has a new album out that refers uh, to her former name, Ellie Twain. Um, I think it's called Little Miss Twain. Yes, Little Miss Twain. It was just was announced in May of this year, and sort of the album is supposed to trace her Northern Ontario youth and paying homage to her roots. So, and apparently, uh, the first single is called "Dirty Rosie," and the album apparently also features a collaboration with the legendary Tanya Tucker. Wow. Okay, that's a big deal. um, the article goes on to say Larry Mercy credited much of his group's success to appearances on The Tommy Hunter Show. He was a member of the Mercy Brothers, a Juno winning Canadian country group active for 30 years until 1989. Quote, Tommy Hunter was a very great country show, he told CBC News, and he really helped a lot of careers, there's no doubt about it. He said he would miss Hunter. I think he was loved across the country, really, he said. He was very much loved in the country music scene. Both before and after the Tommy Hunter Show concluded, Hunter toured across the country, most notably with his backup band, the Traveling Men, a name borrowed from his show's theme song, Traveling Man. But when CBC canceled his TV program, he was devastated. In an interview with CBC News decades later, he recalled how television executives told him over dinner that they would be ending the Tommy Hunter Show with a series of specials. Quote, I didn't hear specials. All I heard was that they were going to cancel the show, he said. I felt like I had failed, the whole thing. What did I do wrong? But it wasn't the end for Hunter. He continued to perform until his 75th birthday in 2012, ending his professional career with a long farewell tour. After stops across the country, he played the final concert in his hometown. Aside from a broken string in his opening medley, it was a smooth, if emotional, send-off, including appearances from longtime friend Lightfoot, former Canadian teen idol Bobby Cartola, and a nod to the local teacher who helped foster his interest in country music. Quote, if I wander off, as I often do, I start losing it. I start getting emotional because all these memories come back, he said in that same CBC interview shortly ahead of his final tour date. There's going to be emotional moments, but at least I'm still breathing, and at least I can say thank you and goodbye. Kimberly Walters recalled performing with him across the country, Walters is a member of the Walters family, a renowned country music group whose members were close friends of Hunter. Hunter was also a frequent guest at the family's theatre, the Walters Music Venue in Bright, Ontario. Despite his tall stature and legendary reputation, he had a soft personality, she told CBC News. But he knew how to command the stage. He was a showman, she said. And he was always so kind to his fans. You know, he always had time for everybody. She said his death is a huge loss for the Canadian country music scene. Tommy Hunter was an icon, she said. People should really know who he was and what he did for Canada, as well as what he did for Canadian country music. Hunter won 3 Juno Awards over his career, as well as a Gemini Award for Best Variety Series for The Tommy Hunter Show. He was inducted into the Canadian Country Music Hall of Fame in 1984 and made a member of the Order of Canada in 1986. He is survived by 3 children, 4 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. So, just yeah, if you are Canadian and if you are a certain of a certain vintage, uh, you just know Tommy Hunter. London native, by the way, for the shout out to those in London, Ontario. And yeah, I don't think, yeah, sorry, I'm sorry I mentioned it had anything to do with cancer. It doesn't think, I don't think that that is the case. I'm looking at some other notes that I took about this, and there's nothing there. So just simply from my natural causes at the age of 89. And yeah, there you go. Tommy Hunter show. I remember gathering around the TV to watch that, that and the Family Brown. For those of you who are familiar with that, if you're from the National Capital Region, I'm not sure if the Family Brown show was national or just a local thing, but I believe that they used to be scheduled one right after the other. Um, uh, I don't look like it. But I actually, the two main sources of music, or the two influencing sources of music in my household, was anything jazz and blues, yes, but the other one was country, and then a little later on in my life, some new wave and disco, because I'm a disco baby. I'm a disco baby. Ah, born in the early 70s. I'm a disco baby. Um, so yeah, those are the so yeah, Tommy Hunter, definitely it was rendezvous television, right? Back in the days when there were fewer channels, and a lot of us watched the same shows. Right. There was appointment television, rendezvous television. That's what it is. Appointment television. There were just certain shows at certain times. Again, pre VCR, that you gathered around the TV for, and you made time, and you put it in your schedule. It wasn't on demand, and then everybody would talk about it, right, the next day, and that sort of water cooler thing, right? Or at the post office or at the grocery store or something like that. So Tommy Hunter was appointment television. Absolutely. Ah, or go see Acres. Ah, there you are. People were asking about you yesterday. It's so nice to see you. It says Tommy Hunter's obit is in the London Free Press. Well, you know what? Let's go take a look at that, because if anybody uh, deserves some credit in this way, it's definitely Tommy Hunter with that lengthy career and that huge contribution, um, to Canadian culture. So, the obituary in the London Free Press. Thomas Tommy James Hunter passed away peacefully at his home in London, Ontario on Thursday, July 2nd, 2026, in his 90th year. He was the beloved son of the late Edith and James Hunter. Tommy was the loving father of Jeff, Greg, and Mark. He will be deeply missed by his grandchildren, Tyler, Carly, Bradley, and Nicole, as well as his great grandchild, Mason. Tom, Tommy is also fondly remembered by his longtime business manager and friend, Brian Edwards, and his wife, Barbara. Known all over the world as, quote, Canada's country gentleman, Tommy was a legendary figure in music and broadcasting. For 27 consecutive years, The Tommy Hunter Show welcomed millions into their living rooms on CBC television in Canada, and for 10 years it broadcast across the United States on the Nashville Network. A proud member of the Canadian Country Music Hall of Fame, Tommy was also honored as a member of the Order of Canada and the Order of Ontario for his immense contributions to Canadian culture. The family wished to thank the staff of University Hospital, Parkwood Hospital, Fox Hollow, and McGarrell Place for their care and compassion. Visitation will take place at the Needham Funeral Service, 520 Dundas Street, London, Ontario, on Thursday, July 9th from 2 to 4 p.m., and again on July 9th, 2026, from 6 to 8 p.m. A private family funeral will be held at a later date. In lieu of flowers, donations to the Humane Society of London and Middlesex would be appreciated. To plant a beautiful memorial tree in memory of Thomas Tommy James, please visit our tree store, and there's a link to it in the obituary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to include this in the chat for today's show. There you go, in case there are people who do want to follow up on that. And thanks for telling me that that was there. I really appreciate that. So yeah, definitely a legend. And when you have somebody that's been in the industry that long, and like people look back and say, because of him or because of her, right? This started my career, or everything got kicked off, or he gave me that piece of advice at the right time, or was a mentor to me. That's again, the country is slightly poorer now because he's gone. He was just someone who was, basically synonymous with Canada. I mean, it was Canada's country gentleman, right? So, it was right there in the way that he was known. So, yeah. Oh, man. It's, I did not know that he was that devastated when he had found out that the TV show was over, and especially that, after doing something successfully and gaining all that respect after 27 years, still, if that comes to the end, um, that would still be possible to even think that you failed if you've done something successfully for 27 years. So clearly, it was a project in which he was invested mind, body, and soul, and to be able for it to hit that hard, which is completely tracks with everything that is known to be true of this man, and what everybody says about him in testimonial, right? About his kindness and his gentleness and his willing to put others before him, and to use his platform to help elevate others. You know, that's a quality that is consistent with somebody who behaves like that. Let's just put it that way. So it's very easy to believe. So there you go, Tommy Hunter. Let's see. Let's get into it. What's going on out there, kits and cubs? Let's go to iPolitics today to kick this off. Will give us a little bit of some continuity. Another day, another country. Prime Minister Mark Carney is in Saudi Arabia today as he seeks economic partnerships with a strategically important country whose notorious human rights record is only getting worse. Carney is in the city of Jeddah on the invitation of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and what will be the first visit to Saudi Arabia by a sitting Canadian Prime Minister in 26 years. Quote, "It's very significant," said University of Ottawa professor Thomas Junot, who specializes in the region. "There is a willingness to deepen relations with Canada, but we are not high on their priority list." Carney's visit follows a gradual thaw in bilateral relations after what Junot called a fairly major diplomatic dispute in 2018. So we'll see how that goes. Says here, staying with the Middle East, Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand says it's unacceptable that Iran has launched attacks on commercial ships in recent days as it attempts to tighten its grip over the Strait of Hormuz. Anand met with Saudi Arabia's foreign minister Thursday, and she says Canada stands alongside Persian Gulf countries as Iran lashes out against them. Speaking with reporters in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, Anand says ceasefires are always fragile, but it's unjustified for Iran to strike civilian targets. The comments follow new airstrikes the United States launched against Iran early Thursday, and as Tehran fired back at Gulf countries. US President Donald Trump said Wednesday that recent Iranian attacks targeting ships transiting the strait, a major global trade choke point, ended the ceasefire. Ah, boy. Oh, boy. On a similar topic, Canadian Press has a story about how Canada is putting international law as one of its top priorities at the United Nations, as others accuse Ottawa of pulling its punches. Canada's U.S. Ambassador David Lemaitre says international rules are under strain by major and regional powers, and that Ottawa is alarmed by countries killing civilians, aid workers, and UN staff. Quote, I don't think anyone's attacking humanitarian law, he said in a recent interview. They're not being attacked directly, they're being undermined indirectly. And so it is the task of the rest of us to call that out and to keep that international legal order alive. Lemaitre said he and Anand are both former law professors who want to advance defending and shaping global rules, which are particularly important for protecting countries that aren't superpowers. Quote, it's a crying need, and Canada's particularly good at it, Lemaitre said. So then goes on here. So a little bit more about the Prime Minister specifically. After clocking in 2 days on the NATO summit circuit in Ankara, Prime Minister Mark Carney is set to kick off what his office notes will be the first visit to Saudi Arabia by a sitting Prime Minister in 26 years, by joining Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, or as some people call him, I'm thinking about the hosts of the Daily Beans, Mohammed Monsa. Just saying. For an afternoon tete-a-tete and later a signing ceremony at the Royal Palace in Jeddah. He's also booked for a separate signing ceremony at the Saudi Arabia-Canada Investment Forum later today, where he'll also make himself available to reporters on his efforts to boost trade and investment with what Canadian press notes is a strategically important country whose notorious human rights record is only getting worse. In an interview with the Wire Service, University of Ottawa professor Thomas Junot described the trip as, quote, very significant, and added that it shows there is a, quote, willingness to deepen relations with Canada, but we are not high on their priority list, he noted. Quote, Carney's visit follows a gradual thaw in bilateral relations after what Junot called a fairly major diplomatic dispute in 2018. The Trudeau government had criticized the kingdom's justice system and its treatment of women, calling on Saudi Arabia to, quote, immediately release human rights activists. Riyadh instead withdrew its ambassador from Ottawa and expelled Canada's envoy. Saudi Arabia had halted trade talks with Canada before restoring ambassadors in 2023. In the advisory announcing the trip last month, Carney's office noted that he hopes to deepen the Canada-Saudi Arabia partnership across energy, critical minerals, defense, infrastructure, and investment, including, quote, expanding trade, promoting two-way investment, and advancing cooperation in priority sectors, including mining, artificial intelligence, clean tech, agriculture, tourism, infrastructure, and life sciences. So that's a little bit what's happening there. And yesterday we mentioned that there were several readouts from the Prime Minister's time at the meeting, from having met with so many different world leaders. We mentioned that he had spoken to Volodymyr Zelensky and had got about 8 other countries to support the Canada-led Defense, Security, and Resilience Bank. But in addition to having done all of that, he had some meetings with the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, Mr. Rob Jetten, and the readout from that says that they reaffirmed the strong partnership between Canada and the Netherlands, rooted in a long history, shared values, and close economic and security cooperation. Noting that bilateral trade in goods has more than doubled over the past decade, the leaders discussed opportunities to further deepen collaboration across key sectors, including defense, critical minerals, energy, and digital and emerging technologies. Prime Minister Mark Carney underscored Canada's efforts to establish the Defense Security and Resilience Bank to provide multi-year low-cost financing for defense, security, and resilience initiatives. The leaders discussed the ongoing war of aggression in Ukraine. They reaffirmed their enduring support for Ukraine and agreed to maintain pressure on Russia to negotiate in order to achieve a just and lasting peace. Prime Minister Carney and Prime Minister Yetton agreed to remain in close contact. The next one that we have is a joint statement by Canada and Germany. It says, today, the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, and the Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz, announced the launch of negotiations towards a Canada-Germany Strategic Partnership Agreement. Canada and Germany benefit from a robust bilateral relationship with established cooperation across a number of shared priorities. The partnership agreement will serve as a flexible strategic framework through which Canada and Germany will shape and advance cooperation and direct investment in key strategic industries for years to come. Among others, key areas of cooperation will include security and defense, technology, artificial intelligence and space, supply chains and critical minerals, energy, and investment. The Prime Minister and Chancellor invited their ministers of foreign affairs to advance negotiations with the intention of finalizing the partnership agreement before the end of the year. Then, of course, there was a statement by the leaders of the three countries. This will include Friedrich Merz again, with regard to the submarine deal that was announced the day before on the day actually that the Prime Minister was leaving for the meeting. So you may have seen some moments out there on the internet where the three are talking together. Pardon me. Sorry about that. And the Prime Minister makes a joke about Norway perhaps lending Canada their star soccer player because Norway had a rather important victory at the World Cup the other day. To which, the leader of Norway jokingly said that, of course, he is not for sale. Darn. It's like, he's sort of thinking, well, now that we got these subs, we can share crews, right? So that means we can share soccer players, right? I think I have it here, actually. Kids and Cubs. So let me set it up here for you, and I can play that.
And I'll just make one final observation. Interoperability also means sharing crews. And in the next World Cup, if you could share Erling Haaland with him, that would be greatly appreciated.
He's not for sale. Thank you. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you. And
so, yeah, there we go. Little moments of the sort. And there was also more to say, of course. More to say. I guess celebrating the fact that there was a deal. So they have a statement that says, in times of profound geopolitical change, Canada, Germany, and Norway are determined to build a strategic long-term security partnership built on shared values and interests. Yesterday's Canadian decision to join the German-Norwegian Type 212 CD submarine cooperation creates a unique opportunity to boost our defense, industrial, and military cooperation. We are seizing this opportunity to bring Canada, Germany, and Norway closer together for decades to come in a spirit of friendship and trust. Together, we will assume greater responsibility for transatlantic security and collective defense. Our commitment extends beyond security and defense, encompassing strategic areas such as investment, energy, artificial intelligence, space, and critical minerals. And to that effect, kits and cubs, there is another clip of all of them together. And I do not know why it keeps on disappearing on me this way. It's very, very strange. Um, for some reason, uh, where I'm getting the clips every time I close a clip rather than returning me to the window I was actually at, returns me someplace completely different, and then I have to go back from scratch and and find that kind of stuff. Um, so here's the moment. It's these moments are always a little. Um, because they're somewhat staged, right? I mean, they're sitting in a semicircle and they're pretending like they're having a casual conversation, but with the cameras there and picking everything up. So these are clearly prepared statements. So sometimes they seem to be a little clunky. But there are a couple of statements here that because, this is true, that it is one of our biggest procurements ever. You know, it deserves to be somewhat underlined. Let's just put it that way. So,
The threats that we face. It was taken.
Sorry about that, kids and cubs. It wasn't supposed to already be streaming, but here we go.
This is an extraordinarily important partnership for Canada, and I would like to say more broadly, obviously, for our countries, but also it's appropriate that we're having this discussion here at NATO. Let me just put this in context. This is the largest defense procurement in Canada's history. It was done in record time. It was a decision that originally was going to be taken by the end of this decade. But because of the preparedness, because of the partnership, and because of the urgency of the situation, the threats that we face, it was taken within a year, highly contested, a great submission by our Korean friends, Hanwha Ocean. We made the right decision for Canada. We made the right decision for NATO. This is an extraordinarily...
So, again, in there, you see at the end, we made the right decision for Canada and we made the right decision for NATO. So, again, leading a little more, put a little more credence to my hypothesis that is, the ability for the three nations to work together in one of the largest fleets with a crew that could be interchangeable. Um, is kind of important, not only for the way that the world is changing in terms of our traditional foes or opponents, if one would call them, but perhaps some of our emerging ones too, or if not opponents, um, allies that are have recently been sending many signals that they may not be as reliable as they used to be. Let's put it that way. So yeah, right? Um, very important to highlight in this particular context that there is uh, some significant investment that is happening here. Um, there was also praise from the Norwegian Prime Minister on the fact that this happened very swiftly and complimented the Prime Minister on saying that that he thinks that it speaks to his leadership. Um, and of course, salutes Canada for its very resolute contribution to the strategic outlook for the Euro-Atlantic cooperation. And then the German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, had something to say, calling, basically indicating that in his estimation, that the new submarine deal was marking a new area of cooperation for Canada and Germany. So hold on. I am trying to bring you the clip of this, but the clips, for some reason, want to start on their own before I can set them up today. Just making it a little tricky. All right, there we go. Let's see. Whoops. Come on. There you go. Uh, this is the one here.
This is something which is bringing the people together, which is bringing our countries together, and which is not just military procurement. This is something which is really fundamental for our cooperation between Canada, Norway, Germany, and this goes far beyond submarines. This is something which is really a new era of cooperation between this part of the world. And that's the reason why we are so grateful, and we are really happy that you took this decision.
So there you go. So some chat there between the leaders about that decision, how it came to be, and all that kind of stuff, and how it's good and portends well for the future, and all that positive stuff that you like to hear when these type of things come along. All right. Of course, there's always the performative part of this. So you always have to keep that in mind. But it is still, this is legitimately a significant deal. Then the Prime Minister had a meeting with Chancellor Merz, and their readout says here, Canada and Germany have a robust, let's try that again. Canada and Germany have a robust bilateral relationship across commerce, defense, and energy. Germany is Canada's largest trading partner in the European Union, with bilateral trade valued at over 34 billion. To create new partnerships between workers and businesses in both countries, the leaders announced the launch of negotiations toward a Canada-Germany Strategic Partnership Agreement. The partnership agreement will bring together cooperation across key priorities, including security and defense, technology, investment, supply chains and raw materials, energy and space, under one umbrella with concrete projects and commitments to shape and advance cooperation in the years to come. Canada and Germany are focused on attracting investment, creating jobs, expanding businesses, and harnessing each other's strengths to build. The Prime Minister and the Chancellor invited the foreign ministers to advance negotiations with the intention of finalizing the partnership agreement before the end of the year. Prime Minister Carney and Chancellor Merz agreed to remain in close contact. All right. Then Prime Minister Mark Carney met with Prime Minister of Denmark, Mette Frederiksen. And it says here that he congratulated Prime Minister Frederiksen on the formation of the new government in Denmark. The Prime Minister reaffirmed the strong partnership between Canada and Denmark and discussed opportunities to increase cooperation on trade, defense, Arctic security, energy, and critical minerals. With bilateral trade having doubled over the past 10 years, the leaders agreed there's significant potential to expand partnerships between Canada and Danish industries and businesses. And given that way that was phrased, I'm going to guess here that there was a Danish federal election or general election very recently. And yes, that was indeed the case. The 24th of March, 2026, all 179 seats in the Folketing were up for election, including 175 in Denmark proper, 2 in Greenland, and 2 in the Faroe Islands. It was the first election during Frederick X's reign, who became king in 2024 following the abdication of Margrethe II. The Social Democrats, which led the outgoing Frederiksen II cabinet, won the most seats of any party with 38. However, their vote share of 21.9% was their lowest finish since 1903. Venstre and the Moderates, the 2 other coalition partners, also lost seats. Among the parties that made significant gains were the Green Left, which became the second largest party, and the Danish People's Party. So there you go. Looks like she did win the election. Yeah, their party got 21.85% of the vote, and then the closest party, the Green Left, got 11.59. So relatively decisive in that sense. But 38 seats out of the legislature, and you need 90 for a majority. So clearly, in this case, you have to build quite a coalition. And I'm seeing here that there are 12 parties in Denmark, 2 parties in the Faroe Islands, and then 2 parties in Greenland. So that's a lot of people to work together with, just to be able to find a way to run a country. We thought running Canada was difficult. Oh my word! Yeesh. Okay, so there was a recent election there. Says here, to deepen transatlantic cooperation and further contribute to NATO's collective defense, the Prime Minister confirmed that Canada will join Latvia and Denmark as the third framework nation for NATO's Multinational Division North, MNDN. As a high readiness command, MNDN is entrusted with critical responsibilities to protect the northern Baltic Sea region. This includes planning and coordinating military operations, information sharing, and exercises. As a framework nation, the Canadian Armed Forces will take a leadership role in these efforts to defend NATO's eastern flank. Prime Minister Carney underscored Canada's efforts to establish the Defence Security and Resilience Bank to provide multi-year low-cost financing for defence security and resilience initiatives. The leaders reaffirmed their enduring support for Ukraine in the face of Russia's ongoing war of aggression. They agreed to maintain pressure on Russia to negotiate in order to achieve a just and lasting peace. Prime Minister Carney and Prime Minister Fredriksson agreed to remain in close contact. And then the Prime Minister had a meeting with the President of Latvia, and I think that it's pronounced Edgars Rinkevics, but I'm not sure about that at all. So if I butchered the name, I am so sorry. It says here, from the readout from that one, Prime Minister Carney reaffirmed Canada's commitment to transatlantic security and NATO's collective defense. The Prime Minister thanked President Rinkevics for Latvia's continued hosting of the Canadian Armed Forces personnel deployed under Operation Reassurance, Canada's largest overseas mission. To deepen these ties and reinforce transatlantic security, the Prime Minister announced Canada's extension of Operation Reassurance until 2031, with an increase of persistently deployed personnel up to 2,600. Operation Reassurance is a critical NATO mission that helps deter Russian aggression on NATO's eastern flank and fortifies our shared defense. The Prime Minister also confirmed that Canada will join Latvia and Denmark as the third framework nation for NATO's multinational division north, and looked forward to deepening cooperation with both partners to reinforce defense and security along NATO's eastern flank. The Prime Minister and the President discussed strengthening the bilateral partnership, including through increased trade, investment, and defense industrial cooperation. Prime Minister Carney emphasized Canada's membership in the EU's Security Action for Europe, or SAFE, initiative, unlocking defense procurement opportunities. The leaders discussed the Defense Security and Resilience Bank and its potential to strengthen allied defense industrial production. Prime Minister Carney welcomed Latvia's support for the initiative and discussed opportunities to encourage broader participation. The Prime Minister and the President reaffirmed their steadfast support for Ukraine and underscored the importance of maintaining pressure on Russia, including through sanctions, while advancing efforts towards a just and lasting peace. They also exchanged views on regional security challenges, including hybrid threats. Prime Minister Carney and President Rinkevics agreed to remain in close contact. And is that the last one? No, there was one more. And this is somewhat of a big deal. There was a joint statement from the Prime Minister of Canada and Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, who is on his way out, on defense financing. Canada and the United Kingdom recognize the shared challenge facing like-minded partners in scaling defense industrial capacity, strengthening resilience, and supporting deterrence and defense. We welcome the growing interest among allies and partners in developing multilateral approaches to defense financing and procurement, including our ongoing initiatives. These initiatives have the potential to support investment in defense industry. Let's try that again. These initiatives have the potential to support investment in defense industrial capacity, improve coordination across allies, and enhance the availability and interoperability of capabilities. They can operate in parallel to support collective defense and security. The efforts of these countries supporting the Defense Security and Resilience Bank and the Multilateral Defense Mechanism have a high degree of complementarity and taken together can serve investment throughout the supply chain. Canada and the UK will continue to engage closely to ensure our respective initiatives develop in a coherent and mutually supportive way. Where it is possible within their agreed mandates, we will seek opportunities to cooperate closely and ensure complementarity. We encourage like-minded partners to engage in these discussions. Now, if that sounds like a lot of bureaucraties, uh, it is. But it would seem that the United Kingdom is um, proposing that the newly named Canada Defence Security and Resilience Bank merge with its similar bank. So there's already a merger being proposed. This, according to the Financial Post. And actually, it's from Bloomberg News, is Ellen Milligan and Thomas Seal, as it appears in the Financial Post. The United Kingdom is talking with Canada about combining their defense financing initiatives, with neither reaching a critical mass of support for its plan. Both countries have proposed setting up bodies to provide capital for the defense industry, helping NATO allies pay for their plans to rearm. Quote, my preference would be to create one new institution that fulfills the role of a number of purposes, UK Chancellor Rachel Reeves told reporters at the NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey on Tuesday. The next step is to continue to work on bringing them together more formally. Her comments come after Prime Minister Mark Carney said 8 other countries agreed to back his nation's Defence Security and Resilience Bank, a new institution that would be headquartered in Canada and would help fund defence initiatives. The supporters include Albania, Belgium, Greece, Latvia, Luxembourg, Romania, Turkey, and Ukraine. Banks such as JP Morgan Chase and Company and Royal Bank of Canada are also listed as backers. While the launch of the bank is a display of Carney's efforts for middle powers to band together in the face of a more disruptive United States, it faces, quote, some obstacles in its current form, said Imran Bayoumi, Deputy Director and Resident Fellow at the Atlantic Council. Quote, the lack of any other G7 nation amongst the bank's initial backers raises questions about how much money it can offer and how much influence it will have, he told Bloomberg. Reeves is expected to depart as Chancellor when Prime Minister Keir Starmer leaves office as soon as this month. The UK has refused to join Carney's initiative, dubbed by some as, quote, bomb bank, despite intense lobbying by the former Bank of England governor. That decision has been widely criticized, including by former UK Defence Secretary John Healey, who resigned last month over funding for his defence investment plan. Instead, Reeves set up the multilateral defense mechanism to address her concerns that Canada's proposal doesn't include stockpiling and procurement provisions and is more focused on lending to smaller defense firms in nations with lower credit ratings. She said the MDM initiative would save the UK as much as 20% on procurement. Earlier on Tuesday, the UK, Poland, the Netherlands, and Finland said that they were making significant progress on the MDM, with the UK contributing an initial 600 million euros. Reeves insists the MDM and DSRB are complementary, but no country has yet signed up to both. The UK recently enlisted former Prime Minister Gordon Brown to lead discussions with Canada on avoiding potential overlap between the efforts. Quote, if smaller countries are really looking to diversify away from the US, they will be most effective when pooling their efforts, not duplicating them, said Bayoumi. The MDM is pretty much a procurement initiative, sovereign procurement. There's an obvious complementarity between that and a bank, which is what the DSRB is, Carney told reporters on Wednesday morning in Turkey, without endorsing a merger. Quote, if you have more predictable procurement, it's easier to finance against it. Carney added that he spoke with Starmer about the matter on Tuesday night, and discussions between each country's officials likely, quote, will pick up. It's an alliance after all, and we're all looking for the best ways to move forward as these capacities build up. Reeves said the UK mechanism will enable allies with high credit ratings to borrow at low rates to stockpile military hardware. This will be done off government balance sheets until the reserves are drawn down in wartime, allowing nations to invest more initially in defense. For the UK specifically, this would also avoid violating Reeves' fiscal rules. The likely next British Premier, Andy Burnham, and Brown have previously suggested some defense spending should be exempt from Reeves' self-imposed financial restrictions. Starmer's government has been under pressure to raise defense outlays further. Healey and his successor, Dan Jarvis, have called for the UK to set out milestones showing how it will reach defense spending of 3.5% of gross domestic product. Reeves told reporters that a trajectory would be set out at next year's spending review, but only for the next 2 to 3 years. So there you have it as well. Another move happening from NATO, looking like there's a possibility that the Defense and Security Resilience Bank, think that's what it was called, DSRB, could actually merge with the UK's multilateral defense mechanism and start bringing more countries together. Both of them do have slightly different mandates, but there's no reason an organization can't work together and actually do both so that all the members can benefit from both approaches. So we'll see what happens there. But again, looking like the creation of mechanisms for asymmetrical geography, as the Prime Minister, I believe, called it, for people to get together and form their own groups and cliques when needed in order to either organize or create an alternative system, create more security, more stability, whatever is needed in that case. It seems that one of the mechanisms, at least being proposed, is looking at expanding so that it can include more members, and that seems to be a win in this case. So yeah, good stuff to hear. Good stuff to hear. Moving from that, kids and cubs, there are a. Oh, wait a minute. Did I miss something here? Let me just check to make sure I got everything on that bit here. There's an analysis story here that I should probably come in with from Murray Brewster, who's been doing some excellent reporting on this summit. Donald Trump let's try that again. Donald Trump whipsawed between love and hate as the NATO summit in Turkey rumbled to a somewhat ambiguous close on Wednesday, with allies including the US president standing firmly behind the Western military alliance's all for one, one for all defense clause. Trump ended the gathering of 32 nations with a rambling news conference where he said he felt tremendous love from the other leaders in the room. It was a stark departure only hours after lambasting them over their defense spending and not backing the US in its war with Iran. There was no major public blow-up, as some leaders and observers feared. There was, however, a sense of muted exasperation as leaders adjourned, expressing appreciation to their Turkish hosts and saying they'll meet again, but not saying when. It would appear that these NATO summits being annual things for certain members, they may not see the value of it being an annual thing anymore, so long as someone is still around. Just like at the G7, how suddenly there is no longer one communique, there are various statements on various topics. The systems are shaping and shifting in order to work around him. Just saying. That was a change from previous years that leaves the next host country, Albania, somewhat in limbo. Trump careened between renewing threats over Greenland to publicly calling for a trade boycott of Spain to calling Iran's leadership scum. The bizarre moments didn't end there. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan offered engraved pistols as a gift to each of his fellow leaders, including Prime Minister Mark Carney. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer mentioned the gift during his closing address. A spokesperson for Global Affairs Canada said the gun was being transferred to the possession of the RCMP for decommissioning and that the ammunition remained in Turkey. Despite Trump's hard rhetoric, Carney said that he believed the president was in a good mood, both on Wednesday and at a Tuesday leaders' dinner. That was the Trump that showed up at the podium following the 2-hour closed-door session. It was a great meeting. There was a lot of love in that room, a lot of unity, Trump said soon after at a bilateral meeting with Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky. Earlier in the day, Trump was clearly in a mood, unleashing a litany of grievances, some old, some new, something borrowed, something blue, such as, sorry, that was my personal edition, such as an extended tirade against Spain, which has refused to abide NATO's spending targets and strongly opposes the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran. Quote, Spain is a terrible partner in NATO, Trump said. They don't participate, they don't pay. I don't want anything to do with Spain. Cut off all trade with Spain, please, including visits, okay? At one point on Tuesday, he said the only reason he showed up was because of his friendship with the Turkish president. The ending statement of the summit reaffirmed the Allies' commitment to Article 5 of the Washington Treaty, which states an attack on one is an attack on all. After Trump previously cast doubt about whether the United States would honor the alliance's bedrock commitment, he endorsed the measure, something European leaders saw as a victory. Even still, the summit ended with no concrete plans for the next one, and many in European and diplomatic circles suggested that other leaders were tired of the haranguing and it may be time to return to the more sporadic calendar of getting together once every few years. Quote, NATO normally does not have summits every year, said Max Bergman of the Center of Strategic and International Studies in Washington. It would not surprise me if this is frankly the last NATO summit of the Trump administration, of Trump's presidency. There is talk from the U.S. side of trying to cancel the summit that was tentatively planned for next year in Albania. Frankly, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think a lot of European leaders would just jump at that. There were published reports on Wednesday that suggested the idea of postponing the next summit was actively discussed. Prior to the summit, the U.S. sowed uncertainty, saying it wasn't going to commit as many forces towards the NATO force model in the event of war than it had in the past. It is also reviewing what troops are in the field and the amount of money Washington contributes to keeping the alliance running. The notion of less U.S. involvement in Europe was difficult for some countries to grasp. Quote, NATO is structured around the United States, said Berkman. It's fundamentally structured around the United States and has been for the last 77 years, and that's how we have wanted it. Bergman said that there are real political considerations that need to be addressed whenever European nations work together for their own collective security absent the United States. Is it just a really important political question, one that Europeans are currently reckoning with? Sorry, not is it. It is just a really important political question, one that Europeans are currently reckoning with. So that's some analysis here from Murray Brewster about everything afterwards, everything NATO. All right. A little bit of economic news for you kids and cubs that may be of interest. I have to go over here and take a look at things. All right. There we go. First, there's two little bits of labor action to discuss. One of them has to do with WestJet. According to Damien Wood of CTV News, WestJet's flight attendants started voting on a strike mandate Wednesday morning. Talks between the union and the airline have been ongoing for more than 10 months. The main issue is how cabin crews are paid. Flight attendants have said they perform an average of 35 hours of unpaid work each month. More than 4,000 union members have until July 15th to cast their votes. The union said a majority yes vote doesn't mean a strike will happen, but would strengthen their position at the bargaining table. Talks between the union and the airline will continue in Calgary until Friday. Ala Hussein, QP8125 WestJet's component president, said the earliest date a legal strike or employer lockout could occur is August 2nd. Hussein said that will become the case if 1. No agreement is reached, 2. No extension to the conciliation is made, and 3. The required 72-hour notice is provided. The flight attendants are planning a day of action on July 14th at the Calgary International Airport. Quote, our focus remains on reaching a negotiated tentative agreement at the bargaining table, Hussein said. Our bargaining committee remains committed to working with the employer to achieve a fair collective agreement, and we remain hopeful that an agreement can be reached without any labor disruption. In a statement, WestJet said it is, quote, focused on reaching an agreement that recognizes the contributions and professionalism of our cabin personnel while making sure WestJet remains competitive and sustainable. It is a normal part of the bargaining process for unions to conduct strike authorization votes during negotiations, the airline said. The occurrence of a strike vote, even where successful, does not mean a strike will occur. We remain at the bargaining table and are committed to working towards a negotiated collective agreement. On its website, WestJet says cabin crew are paid using a credit hour system. It says this is the standard pay model for cabin crew across North America. Quote, rather than paying a lower hourly wage for every hour on duty, the credit hour system combines flight time, ground duties, delays, and other required work into a single higher rate of pay, the website says. The rate is then credited across the full duty pay. WestJet says on its website that cabin crew members don't work unpaid. It says credit hours are calculated and paid as outlined in the collective agreement. All duty time on the ground and in the air is compensated accordingly to the collective agreement, the website says. So we'll see what becomes of that. The other place where there is some interesting news is at the Bank of Canada, which has been ordered to stop using replacement workers during a strike. I did not know that there was a strike of the Bank of Canada. But here, according to Yahoo Finance's Catherine Morrison, actually, this is the Canadian Press's Catherine Morrison, as it appears in Yahoo Finance, the Bank of Canada has been ordered to stop using the services of contracted Garda workers while its security officers are on strike. In a decision Tuesday, the Canada Industrial Relations Board said the Bank of Canada has contravened the Canada Labour Code by using contractors and the services of union members during the strike. Security officers at the Bank of Canada went on strike in June seeking better wages, benefits, and stable schedules after talks failed to secure a new collective agreement between the bank and the union. The Public Servants Alliance of Canada said at the time that 63 security officers at the Bank of Canada's Ottawa and Montreal offices were on strike and that the Montreal workers were also locked out by the employer. The issue was brought to the board after the union also claimed the bank had been contracting workers during the strike and planned to contract a third party for security services. The Bank of Canada said in a statement Tuesday that it respects the decision of the Canada Industrial Relations Board and will comply, quote, as soon as it can put in place the necessary measures to maintain the required level of security for its people and facilities. In 2024, Canada passed legislation to ban federally that. I'm not sure. We can comply as soon as we can put in place the necessary measures maintained to requires like no you put in to place the required level of security for its people and facilities, and that means that if you have to go back to the bargaining table and negotiate because it's only your security staff that's currently on strike that could provide that you do that. It's not okay, we'll comply as soon as we have time to find a workaround. I don't know how many days they've been given to comply, but comply means do it by the date. In 2024, Canada passed legislation to ban federally regulated workplaces from bringing in replacement workers during the legal strike, and the new rules came into effect last year. Alex Silas, National Executive Vice President of the Public Service Alliance of Canada, said he had an emotional call with the local picket campaigns and bargaining team Tuesday after the decision was released. He said the decision was a major win for the union, the Canadian labor movement, and workers across Canada. Folks are feeling overjoyed, justified in this fight that we've been leading for the past 15 days straight against an unjust employer trying to force unjust concessions on these security workers who work hard to keep the bank safe, said Silas, who was hired at the Bank of Canada as a security officer in 2010 and has been on the picket line as a captain throughout the strike. I'm just happy that the Labor Board did the right thing here. Silas said the union is waiting to get back to the bargaining table with the Bank of Canada. Quote, at this point, these workers want to get back to work, he said. They love what they do, they're proud of what they do, but they feel that they have a right to some work-life balance and some respect from their employer. Hopefully, this decision from the board will help the employer understand that they've been in the wrong and that the responsible thing to do now for the benefit of everyone and for the integrity and the reputation of the Bank of Canada's Canada Central Bank is to get back to the table, withdraw their concessions, and settle on a fair deal. So there you go. Kids and Cubs with that. I think lately, with regard to that as well, there had been an NDP push to what they call get rid of what they're calling a loophole in the anti-scab legislation that was mentioned in that article. According to, let's see here, Adam King of The Maple, says here, when federal anti-scab legislation finally came into force last year, it marked the culmination of a decades-long struggle by Canada's labor movement. For generations, unions had fought to ban employers from using replacement workers during strikes and lockouts, arguing that scab labor prolongs disputes, poisons labor relations, and undermines workers' rights to strike. The passage of Bill C-58 was celebrated as one of the most significant labor law reform victories in many years. But as workers at Rogers Communications in Abbotsford, BC discovered, winning an anti-scab law and enforcing its spirit are not necessarily the same thing. Uh, Earlier this month, I'm going to guess this is in June, yes. Earlier in June, NDP parliamentary leader Don Davies introduced Bill C-284, legislation designed to close a loophole in the Canada Labour Code that employers have begun to exploit to undermine the ban on scabs. The bill follows the experience of 25 striking United Steelworkers telecommunications technicians whose 4.5-month strike against Rogers became one of the first major tests of the new federal anti-scab regime. The Rogers Abbotsford strike showed that if employers can no longer hire scabs outright, they can still fly in managers from other locations to perform the work of striking bargaining unit members. For unions like the United Steelworkers, or USW, that's a distinction without a difference. The labor movement's campaign for federal anti-scab legislation stretches back decades. Quebec adopted an anti-scab law in 1977, while British Columbia followed in 1993. Like union members in other provinces, however, workers in federally regulated industries, such as airlines and telecommunication, remained without similar protections, despite repeated attempts by the labor movement to secure them. NDP members introduced anti-scab bills numerous times over the years, only to see them defeated by Liberal and Conservative governments. The breakthrough came in 2022 with the Supply and Confidence Agreement between the Liberals and the NDP. Under pressure from organized labor and the NDP, the federal government introduced Bill C-58, which finally prohibited federally regulated employers from using replacement workers during legal strikes and lockouts. Unions, including the steelworkers, celebrated the legislation as a historic victory. As I argued shortly after, however, enforcement would be key to ensuring that employers already angry about the new restrictions wouldn't find ways to circumvent the law. Rogers almost immediately put the new anti-scab provisions to the test. In June 2025, 25 technicians represented by USW Local 1944 issued strike notice after bargaining with the telecom giant failed to produce a new collective agreement. The workers performed telecommunications installation and maintenance work in the Abbotsford area, and during bargaining were seeking wage improvements and equal pay with workers performing similar functions elsewhere at the company. But according to the union, once the strike began, Rogers had little incentive to bargain seriously because the company found another way to keep operations running. Rather than negotiating a settlement under the pressure of the strike, Rogers brought in managers from Alberta and other parts of BC to perform bargaining unit work that would ordinarily have been done by the striking technicians. The steelworkers argued that Rogers had found and was exploiting a loophole in the newly implemented replacement worker ban. After Bill C-58 received royal assent, Section 94, Paragraph 4 of the Canada Labour Code was amended to prohibit employers from using a range of employees, contractors, managers, or volunteers as replacement workers during work stoppages. Subsection A bans managers at the work site from performing bargaining unit work during a strike, while subsection C is intended to prevent employers from utilizing staff from other workplaces not on strike. However, the latter subsection only refers to employees, which Rogers interpreted to mean that managers from outside could be transferred to the struck location. Under this reading of the law, Rogers utilized managers not just to perform maintenance activities necessary to protect public safety and the employer's property, both of which are permitted, but to perform the work of striking USW members. For months, the workers on strike watched as out-of-town managers crossed their picket line. Consequently, the dispute dragged on through the summer and fall of 2025. The United Steelworkers repeatedly accused Rogers of refusing to return to meaningful negotiations while relying on scabbing managers to keep the business operating. Union leaders argued that the company's ability to continue functioning without bargaining union workers undermined the very purpose of anti-scab legislation. As the strike entered its second month, the union intensified public pressure, highlighting Rogers' strong corporate profits, while workers remained on the picket lines seeking wage parity and a fair deal. Eventually, bargaining resumed and workers ratified a new contract that ended the dispute. But the broader issue remained unresolved, and Rogers had signaled to employers that the scab ban had a loophole. The proposed legislation from Davies is straightforward. If passed, it would revise the code to clarify that the prohibition on firms utilizing employees from outside the struck workplace during a strike or lockout includes managers. In practical terms, this would prevent employers from doing exactly what Rogers did in Abbotsford. Davies argues that the existing loophole makes a mockery of the anti-scab law. The proposed bill's purpose, therefore, is to ensure that the intent of Bill C-58 is respected in practice, not merely in theory. United Steelworkers National Director Marty Warren has framed the issue similarly, arguing that if employers can simply move managers around the country to perform struck work, the right to strike is fundamentally weakened and collective bargaining is undermined. The concern also extends well beyond one Rogers bargaining unit. Large national corporations, many of which operate in the federal jurisdiction covered by the Canada Labour Code, possess resources that smaller employers do not. Telecommunications companies, banks, airlines, and logistics firms often have extensive management structures spread across multiple regions. If these employers can redeploy managers whenever a union member exercises their right to strike, anti-SCAP protections are rendered far less meaningful. The right to strike is the foundation of collective bargaining. Without the ability to withdraw their labor, workers lose their most important source of bargaining power. Anti-SCAB laws are meant to make the strike weapon truly meaningful. If employers can simply replace striking union members, even if only temporarily, withdrawn labor holds far less leverage. The Rogers strike demonstrated, however, that not only does the legislative prohibition on scabs need to be airtight, but unions also need to remain vigilant to ensure the spirit of the law is respected and enforced. The actions Rogers took against its technicians in Abbotsford risks becoming a roadmap for corporate Canada. What began as a local strike involving 25 telecommunication workers could become a precedent that weakens the anti-SCAB law for which labor struggled for so long. The labor movement spent decades fighting for a federal ban on replacement workers. Any loophole that allows employers to skirt the law must be closed. At a time when the governments are attacking the right to strike from multiple angles, we can't allow past victories to be undermined or technicality. Sorry, let's try that again. At a time when governments are attacking the right to strike from multiple angles, we can't allow past victories to be undermined on a technicality. Closing the Rogers loophole is necessary to protect the scab ban as well as the right to strike. And there you have it, kits and cubs. So a little bit of a labor union there, and labor news, I should say there, and interesting angle on the anti-scab legislation. See that there is indeed a loophole, and that in this case here, with the Bank of Canada, the Bank of Canada was ordered to comply. So that's some positive news here. That's more on the labor front. On the economic front, specifically, let's see what we have here. With the fact that things have started up again with Iran, bond treasury yields have started to go up again, according to Sean Conlon and Swada Baimia of CNBC News. U.S. Treasury yields moved higher on Tuesday as investors digested further economic data and anticipated the start of the NATO summit in Turkey. The 30-year Treasury bond rose more than 5 basis points to yield a 5.053, while the benchmark 10-year Treasury yield added more than 6 basis points to 4.545. The 2-year Treasury note was up more than 5 basis points at 4.179, and at 1 basis point equals 0.01%, and yields move inversely to prices. On Tuesday, the Commerce Department of the United States reported that the U.S. trade deficit came in at $77.6 billion in May, up from the revised $54.6 billion in April, and just below the $78.08 billion that economists polled by Dow Jones expected. Investors are now looking ahead to the FOMC meeting minutes on Wednesday, the first to be led by the new Federal Reserve Chair Kevin Warsh, which will offer further insights on monetary policy. Thursday will bring the weekly initial jobless claims and existing home sales data for June. Federal Reserve Governor Christopher Waller spoke on Monday and reiterated the central bank's commitment to its 2% inflation target, while noting the pros and cons of forward guidance. Forward guidance can help speed up policy transmission, but if it's not flexible enough, it can hinder policy transmission, and in some cases, it's best not to use it at all, Waller said. So yes, and while that has happened for the United States, both with their 30-year and 10-year, this has also happened for Canada because we got pulled up with what's going on with the United States. Our bond yields have gone up from a recent low of 3.36% for our 10-year to 3.549%. So again, if you're doing things like renewing mortgages and stuff like that, this is the rate that usually affects that. And with regard to our 30-year bond in Canada, There's also been some changes. We've been pulled up by what's going on in the United States as well, from a recent low of 3.7570% to now at 3.95%. So a little bit of a fluctuation, given what's happening here, the reprise of hostilities that have been taken place here. Um, According, since we talked about the U.S. Fed, according to Isabel Docto of the Daily Hive, says that another Bank of Canada interest rate updates is scheduled this month, and you may be bracing yourself for the Crown Corporation's latest decision. In June, Canada's central bank held its key interest rate at 2.25% for the fifth time since October 2025. The governing council cited that conflict in the Middle East continues into its 4th month. The resulting increases in energy prices and disruptions in global supply chains are weighing on global economic growth and pushing up inflation, reads the June announcement. At the same time, the U.S. administration continues to propose new tariffs and trade policy. Uncertainty remains elevated. The Bank of Canada noted that the inflation rate reached 2.8% in April, reflecting higher oil prices and the impact of the government axing the consumer carbon tax. Economic activity in Canada has been weak, and uncertainty about U.S. trade policy persists. The conflict in the Middle East is ongoing, and oil prices remain elevated, reads the announcement. Governing Council is continuing to look through the war's near-term impact on headline inflation, but will not let higher energy prices become persistent inflation. At the same global issues, as the same global issues persist, here's what experts predict from the Bank of Canada rate announcement on Wednesday, July 15th. NerdWallet Canada expert Clay Jarvis says that due to the recent technical recession conversations and higher inflation, there's a will they, won't they around the upcoming Bank of Canada rate decision. But the opposing nature of Canada's current economic maladies explain why the bank's likely to continue holding the overnight rate on July 15th, he explains in a statement. When the country is experiencing a slow economy, the Bank of Canada typically lowers interest rates, while increasing inflation usually means rate hikes. Treating one condition could exacerbate the other, so it looks like the bank will go the do no harm route and maintain the overnight rate at 2.25%, says Jarvis. He adds that Canada's GDP grew by a healthy 0.5% in April, which means the economy isn't persistently in need of life support. Overall, Jarvis says the central bank is in a position to ride out the wave of uncertainty caused by the war between the United States and Iran and CUSMA negotiations. He adds that the Bank of Canada has the leeway to decide later whether inflation or economic growth should be its priority. So that's the basic statement here. So probably looking for the bank to hold steady here. Taking a little look at trading economics to see if the reprise of hostilities have increased the price of crude oil and Brent, and they have indeed. Because I remember earlier this week I was seeing crude oil at just under $70, and it's back up to 73.83, so up a little bit, not ridiculous amount, but definitely up. Uh, and then all the other things here I'm seeing. Scrap aluminum is up, aluminium is up, urea is up, sulfur is up. So yeah, all the typical things that you would expect to go back up with the reprise of hostilities between Iran and the United States are definitely taking place. The other thing that a lot of people have been talking about of late is the performance of the Canadian dollar, particularly as it um, um, compares to the performance of the US dollar, which is behaving in ways it probably shouldn't, but so are the stock markets, which are extremely overvalued. I was listening to something today about like if you are invested in Canadian banks in particular, um, the profit ratios and earning ratios and all that kind of stuff are just completely out of whack at the current moment. You're doing really well. You're doing very, very, very well. Um, but things are completely out of whack. There's the stock market should not be doing what it is doing at the moment. So when that correction finally comes, it's going to be a doozy. Um, so this, according to Graham Gordon of the Hub, the July 1st deadline to renew the Canada United States Mexico agreement came and went without a renewal, and the Trump administration declined to extend the pact and started the decade long clock on its potential winding down. The Canadian dollar, already sagging, touched a 14-month low near 70 cents US last week, and analysts have trimmed their forecasts accordingly. But the currency strategists and economists who spoke to the Hub say the loonie's dip has less to do with trade negotiations than a widening gulf between interest rates between the two countries. The timing of the move, this is a quote, the timing of the move shows this is clearly a rate differential story, driven in particular by Kevin Warsh's notably hawkish first FOMC meeting as chair, said Bradley Saunders, North America economist at Capital Economics. Kuzma uncertainty hasn't really changed in recent months, as everyone knew the July 1st deadline would be missed. And that's probably why there wasn't a big reaction from the stock market when Donald Trump did what everybody expected him to do and said that he wasn't going to extend. If anything, Saunders argued U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer's stated preference for bilateral deals that preserve the load-bearing pillars of CUSMA has provided more certainty, not less. Sean Osborne, chief foreign exchange strategist at Sean Osborne, chief foreign exchange strategist at Scotiabank Global Banking and Markets, explained how dramatically rate expectations have flipped this year. In January, markets priced in more than 50 basis points of Federal Reserve easing over 2026 and a modest Bank of Canada hike. Then hostilities in the Gulf sent oil prices and U.S. inflation worries higher. And by the end of June, markets anticipated 40 basis points of American rate hikes instead. Werner Antweiler, professor of the University of British Columbia's Sauder School of Business, noted that the bond yield spread is currently thought to be the primary short-term driver of the exchange rate, though shocks can knock the relationship out of alignment. Still, Osborne believes the yield shock is largely played out. Scotiabank expects no U.S. hikes this year and sees the Bank of Canada tightening modestly in the coming months in response to inflation and somewhat stronger growth. All else equal, we think that the Canadian dollar is somewhere near the floor. Carl Scamata, chief marketing strategist at Corpay, on domestic issues. Its failings, the loonie has acted, and that's the thing, right? We're many international currencies, but not particularly the United States. It is growing particularly quickly, but again, particularly in the here, it says that exactly. That's right here. The AI boom is pulling capital into the U.S. Investors have turned overwhelmingly bullish on the dollar. Fed tightening may have been excessive once tariff and war-driven inflation between the Fed and the Bank of Canada is fully priced into the loonie, along with a whole lot of bad news about the outperform expectations, Scamata told the Tyler pointed to Mountain American risk faces rapidly growing debt, heavily reliance on short-term political pressure. Quote, it all comes down to how much investors trust the fiscal discipline of the Federal Reserve. Both are a bit in doubt, he explained, adding that U.S. inflation Canada's. A softer currency cuts both ways. For price here, but Osborne noted the weak Canadian dollar acts as adjust to shocks like Kuzma, handing exporters a price advantage. Antweiler stocks, bonds, and ETFs, which gain value when the loonie. The forecasts cluster in a narrow band. Capital economics see the loonie Capital economics see the loonie troughing around as sticky core inflation forces the Fed to. The Bank of Canada is only beginning to consider hikes, but Saunders doubts it falls much further. 70 for investors, hence why the currency has moved sideways in recent weeks once this threshold was reached. Scamata expects a gradual appreciation, numerous reversals as conditions and narratives shift. Only if negotiations. This outlook and other bank forecasts similarly project the loonie ending the year between 72 and about 70 cents, and noted markets do not appear to fear an outright rupture of Kuzma. Trump has new side agreements for each specific sector. It echoes the Bank of Canada's early. He offered a caveat, however, forecasting its move as market confidence. I would be a rich. Follows from that humility to first chasing headlines, extrapolating from recent trends to be devastating. And there you have it. Economic stuff that has been going on as well, just to get you a little particular, since there's a lot of people who are renewing. Finally, talk to you a little bit because I had mentioned amount of stories and basically calls wondering about wondering you know, is he not trying through um uh, when really leading in public opinion polls uh, and that is not for him uh, a lot, not from inside the house, comes from enough here on one has a tone to it that echoes stuff that we've been saying. We are once again rendered because there's no way they can defeat it, because they needed two parties at any given time to agree with them to take. Um, there's an irrelevance. There's a futility element here to what they are doing, and hones in on that. There's something just sad and pathetic about it all, really. There's a National Post columnist wondering aloud whether Canada should have become. Yeah, that was dumb. Or America's defending call overturned to bail out the U.S. because it's now been away from the government benches on track. Poilièvre gave a speech at the Stampede on the BC Conservative leadership race. Except no, because it's Poilièvre. It can't be that. Called it a victory against liberal lobbyists from out east, a hilarious description of a group of people who all either worked for Stephen Harper or, in the case of Anthony Koch, Pierre Corey Tenike, Doug Ford's very honest and accurate 2020. I remember Nick Kouvalis following all of that. And he was not um, impressed at all with of that type of talk. Wow. Let's see if I can find it here for you. Um, like, I mean, they are fighting with each other. It's that thing that I mentioned yesterday, right? Where uh, when he's talking about out east and what he really means, what Pierre really means is Corey Tanaik, right? Um, because there's this whole thing going on there. And Corey Tanaik went out to British Columbia to help Caroline Elliott's campaign, didn't win, and therefore that's what Pierre Poilièvre is referring to there. Um, but yeah, uh, just some interesting stuff here. Like Dimitri Sudas responding, if your theory is that liberal lobbyists ran Caroline Elliott's campaign, then I suppose you're also suggesting Caroline Elliott herself was a liberal. That would probably surprise both her and the lifelong conservatives who worked tirelessly on her campaign. So this is Dimitri Sudas responding to one of the many influencers. They're highlighting Pierre Poilievre stating in his speech here. Um, well, then let's just look at it because, of course, Pierre Poilievre uh, has been receiving a lot of critique mercilessly. So, for his choice of garb as well. I know we're not supposed to look shame, but there's a lot of people that are saying that he looks like Homer Simpson in that episode where he was managing emerging country singing star Lurleen. And uh, it was also in this speech while he was wearing this that he was talking about ending work culture in the military and trying to do his best Pete Hegseth, and talk about having a warrior culture. Well, and some people said that he's looking a little bit like a Liberace's love child.
The future Premier of British Columbia, Carolyn Finlay. Way to go. Fresh off a big win against Liberal lobbyists from out east.
So, yes, liberal lobbyists from out east. Now, listen, I understand that Corey Tanaik, Doug Ford conservatives are not the same type of conservatives as Pierre Poilievre conservatives, but there is no universe, galaxy, dimension, realm, postal code, area code, planet, continent in which Doug Ford conservatives are liberals. That's they might be a different type of conservative altogether, but there's no way these people are liberals. But once again, right, we are once again it is the purity test thing. Okay, I'm seeing a whole bunch of stuff in the chat saying buffering beaver, buffering beaver, buffering beaver. I do not know what to do with that. I'm sorry, kits and cubs. Okay. I'm sorry. I don't know what it pertains to. I guess I'll have to go back and watch the show. All right. Sorry, kits and cubs, if I was buffering a lot there. Okay. Okay. That just threw me. All right. Let's see if I can get back on track here. Whoops. Okay, that's very weird. All right. So sorry, kids and cubs. I lost my place. And everything, yeah, okay, everything just went very weird. All right, let's try this here. All right. So back to Evan Scrimshaw's article here. I'm going to go back to the previous paragraph that he wrote. Poilièvre gave a speech at the Stampede this weekend where he congratulated Carrie Lynn Finlay on her victory in the BC Conservative race. A normal, innocuous comment, right? Except no, because it's Poilièvre. It can't just be that. He called it a victory against liberal lobbyists from out east, a hilarious description of a group of people who all either worked for Stephen Harper or, in the case of Anthony Koch, Pierre Poilièvre. He is, of course, referring to Nick Kouvalis and Corey Tenayk, Doug Ford's senior advisors, and reliable but very honest and accurate describes Poilièvre's doom in 2025. Is Poilièvre allowed to take a shot at them? Sure, they lost. It's fair game. And it's certainly the case that Tenayk and Kouvalis have taken their fair share of shots at him. But it's less about what you're allowed to do as an opposition leader and much more about the utter futility of Poilièvre's time in office at this point. If the point is to attack Tenayk and Kouvalis, there's a platform for that. A freaking podcast deal working for Travis Danraj. Sorry. Okay, if the point is to attack Tenayk and Kouvalis, there's a platform for that. A fucking podcast deal working for Travis Danraj's shit-ass company. Okay, that's out there. But the job of leader of the opposition should be more, and if Poilièvre won't do the job, then he needs to resign. Quote, it might be in my party's interest for him to sit there. It's not in the national interest, and I would say, for heaven's sake, man, go. David Cameron uttered those words about Jeremy Corbyn in 2016 after the Brexit referendum at one of their last PMQ's fights. And while the 2017 election made it look like Corbyn was an electoral performer, it would be the case that Corbyn's greatest legacy was electing the first sizable Tory majority since 1987 at the 2019 election. Cameron knew that Corbyn was electoral poison and that while the party would benefit from his usefulness, the country wouldn't. That's how I feel about Poilièvre now. I don't have the enmity that many readers of the site have for him, for a simple reason. He's too pathetic to really hate. There's just nothing here anymore with him. He has no purpose to do the job anymore. He has no ambition for the country beyond a seemingly sincere but entirely empty belief that he'd do better in never enumerated ways. What is Poilièvre's actual position on building or rebuilding Canadian economic strength? He claims to think a few niche tax credits will do the job, but the scale of the failure he describes is not met by the tweaks to the tax code. He claims that Canada's economy has become unmoored under a decade of bad Liberal governments, but he has no coherent plan or vision for fixing it. Take Avi Lewis. Whatever you think of his vision, he at least has articulated the beginnings of a vision of what's wrong about the Canadian economy. Corporate consolidation and lack of regulation and competition leading to decisions to boost corporate profits at the expense of working people is a theory of economic malaise, and we know from the Leap Manifesto and his leadership campaign that he wants a revolution in how the economy works. He's been leader for 3 months, and we already have a basic but workable sense of what he actually wants. Poilièvre is now 46 months into his leadership of the CBC, and we have no idea of the structural changes he wants to make. He wants higher mandatory minimums, he wants lower taxes, he wants lower debt, but doesn't want big cuts. And at the end of the day, what he seems to want is tinkering around the edges. He has no vision for what this country is supposed to look like if it is governed as he would call properly. Paul Wells and Andrew Coyne used to argue about this constantly with Harper, whether his time in office, especially the minority years, consisted of success for Conservatives. Wells' argument was that it was, not simply because of the few victories won by the right, but by the victories the left couldn't win. That argument never landed with Coyne, but I understood it. Trudeau was a great example of what Wells would argue. There were lots of small things that Trudeau did that a Conservative government wouldn't have, and being in government to stop those would have constituted a victory. The problem is, now Carney is stopping what Poilièvre might call the woke excesses, so what is Poilièvre proposing that's meaningfully different? Nothing. My finally updated federal model has the Liberals still comfortably over 200 seats and the CPC flirting with double digits. That has barely changed since the last time I bothered updating it. And honestly, the only reason I did bother updating it is that I wanted to see what the model would say about Chicoutimi given Tuesday's news there. Poilièvre is nowhere in the polls because he has nothing to offer the country. No vision of success, no plan for the future, and no actual differentiation on the key issues of the day. Poilièvre wanted to win in 2025 more than anything to show that the country rejected Trudeau-era wokeness. Carney shows that rejection every time it opens its mouth, and so he got what he wanted, and yet is further away from it than ever. Poilièvre will never be prime minister. For everybody's sake, he shouldn't be opposition leader either. Boom. just puts it right out there. Again, I agree. And if the conservatives had any type of survival instinct, they would be looking at that. Uh, Currently, that still doesn't seem to be the case. Although, like I said, I hear more and more rumblings in the press that there seems to be growing discontent, but there's still that claim that nobody of any particular import or clout is actually organizing to try to replace him. I can't believe that that's true. I can't believe that's true. I believe there might not be somebody openly doing it. I mean, with the possible exception of Jamil Javani, who was clearly smelling blood in the water and coming for Pierre's job and tried to position himself as the next charismatic leader of the party. I'm not sure how that's going to work out for him, though. I'm not. You can't walk into a room and refer to 2/3 of the country as degenerates and expect that that's going to go well for you for your political future. Hello, degenerates. The other one we have, I believe it's from Robin Urbach. And on her point of view, not only is there a sad and pathetic element to it, but it's getting to the point where we're talking outwardly about humiliation. So hers is called The Humiliation of Pierre Poilièvre Continues. I'm starting to believe that conservative leader Pierre Poilièvre is the subject of an elaborate, prolonged hazing ritual. The frat house in this scenario might have better decorum and nicer furniture than those found on college campuses, but the initiation process is the same. Subject the pledge to a succession of humiliating rituals to see if and how long he can endure. For Mr. Poilièvre, the cascade of indignities has been going on for more than a year. This week, the man who once seemed a lock to become Canada's next prime minister lost his 5th MP since last year's election, 6th if you count Kathy Wagenthal deciding that she was just going to up and quit. 4 of those MPs crossed the floor to join the Liberal Party, and the 5th Quebec MP, Richard Martel, has just been selected by Prime Minister Mark Carney to join the Senate, which means he is leaving the Conservative caucus. Mr. Poilièvre renamed Mr. Martel as the Shadow Minister for Sport just 1 week ago. So that's why I saw somebody yesterday thanking Pierre for making him the Shadow Minister of Sport. And I just thought it was something from a few days ago that I hadn't seen, but this was a new one. So yeah, it is looking more and more like nobody informed the leader of the party that this was happening. This particular decision is a smart one by Mr. Carney. It shrinks the Conservative caucus by 1, of course, but it also means a by-election for the riding of Chicoutimi-Le which the Tories held by just 3 percentage points in the last election. There were just 37 votes separating the Bloc's second-place ranking from the Liberals' third in that election. And if the results of the redo in Terrebonne are any indication, Mr. Carney has a good shot at fortifying his majority with another seat in Quebec. Mr. Poilièvre, meanwhile, is forced to exit the premises to the sound of a sad trombone, watching from the outside as his own plans are enacted by the Prime Minister. The hazing of the Conservative leader isn't only coming from outside of the caucus, however. Last week, his leadership was tested by his MP for Bowmanville, Jamil Javani, who has a history of making trouble for his bosses. Earlier this year, Mr. Javani went on an independent trip to the U.S. to talk trade, after which he told Breitbart News that Canadians are shooting ourselves in the foot by throwing anti-America a hissy fit. Mr. Poilièvre was subsequently forced to come out and distance himself from the comments. Then last week, Mr. Javani pounced on a photo taking of the Prime Minister at a Pride event, shaking hands with a man in kink gear, calling the scene shameful, and later doubling down by calling out wider liberal degeneracy. Yes, yes. We are degenerates. And the thing about this is that if you saw the photo, it was a man who had a leather hood on his face that looked like a puppy, right? There's something in the fetish world called puppy play. So it was someone from that community. Prime Minister went there, shook their hands. Uh, apparently, Jamil Javani had a problem with that. The Prime Minister being there, shaking hands with alleged degenerates, clearly, who are wearing pervy costumes. See, and it's not up at all. Not up at all to politicians like Pierre Poilièvre or Jamil Jawani to explain why it is that they will not attend Pride. No. It's up to people to explain why it is that they would go out there. So Giovanni trying to create this world in which some people don't need to be held accountable for their decisions. Interesting. Now, Mr. Giovanni having problems with people posing next to half-naked men in pervy costumes. You will notice that that applies in some situations, but it doesn't apply in others. Like, for example, this one, where Jamil Javani, once again, like Pierre, showing how he makes a fist, is standing next to a boxing champion, Brandon Cook, who is not wearing a shirt. So Jamil Javani had no problem standing next to a half-naked man, and then he would turn around and says, well, that's a sports outfit. It's not a pervy costume. Yeah, explain that to anyone who's ever looked up gear fetish on the web. Right, Mr. Giovanni? You have no problem with politicians posing next to half-naked men in costumes that some people could consider pervy. You have a problem with the people who attended the event that were supposed to honor other people with whom you have a problem. It's not the behavior you have a problem with. It's the people attending and the people benefiting from the Prime Minister's time. We even had some people turning around going, I can't believe the Prime Minister was there instead of being at the World Cup match. The same people who a couple of days ago, when the Prime Minister was in Vancouver to watch Canada versus Switzerland, saying, I can't believe he's there. He's already seen so many matches, but he's seeing all the Canadian matches and he doesn't attend question period. But on the day where the Prime Minister was spending his time with the rainbow community, well, then that day he should have been in Los Angeles on Canada Day, supporting the Canadian team. Well, not on Canada Day. Sorry. On the 4th of July. Or the weekend before that, actually. So, I mean, was it Canada and Morocco? The Canada-South Africa game, sorry. It's the one. They're just never happy. They're just never happy. Back to Robin Urbach's. Here it goes. Then last week, Mr. Giovanni pounced on a photo taking of the Prime Minister at a Pride event, shaking hands with a man in kink gear, calling the scene shameful. So, wonder if I was hoping I would be able to find that picture specifically. So you can see if there was anything actually shameful without the picture. Yeah, can't find it very quickly here. I was just taking a little look to see if it was there. But it's literally shaking someone's hand, right? There's nothing going on. There's nobody gyrating or anything of the sort. It's not like at the Pride Parade where there's some woman that just came in and jumped on Justin Trudeau. I think she might have been topless at the time or something. It literally was just somebody standing by the rail. You know, those dividers that they put between the spectators and the parade route, and shaking hands. Literally nothing other than that. Yeah, I was hoping that the article, because it had a link, had a picture to it, but that is not the case here. So we'll continue. Mr. Poilièvre doesn't need this. What he needs is for his MPs to stay on message, to poke at Mr. Carney's vulnerabilities instead of unintentionally reinforcing the ones that plague his own party. Indeed, Mr. Giovanni's bozo eruptions reaffirm the perception that conservatives are reluctant to blame U.S. President Donald Trump for our tariff-induced woes, and that the party is full of prudish killjoys who will freak out over a handshake at a pride parade. And then we have Mr. Giovanni also claiming that Mark Carney was threatening to pull funding away from people that were hosting Canada Day events and not labeling them multicultural day events. He's trying to kill Canada Day when multicultural day was on June 27th and Canada Day is July 1st. I mean, it never stops with these people. But worse than that for Mr. Poilièvre, it all makes him look weak. Former Prime Minister Stephen Harper would have never tolerated these sorts of rogue, dumb outbursts in his caucus, and the fact that Mr. Poilièvre is forced to look the other way speaks to the tenuous hold he has on his job. Yes, more than 87% of delegates supported him in a leadership review back in January, but that was 2 floor crossers, 1 MP jumped to the Senate, and 1 Liberal majority lock ago. Mr. Poilièvre seems to be holding on for dear life, and the humiliations just keep coming. Some are even self-inflicted. During a speech at a Stampede barbecue in Calgary this past weekend wearing a white cowboy outfit that was surely an initiation exercise. See, we're not the only ones saying it. Mr. Poilièvre took a few minutes to lash out at Liberal lobbyists from out east while congratulating BC Conservative Party leader Carrie Lynn Findlay on her win. It was clearly an attack on Corey Teneycke, who managed the campaign for Miss Findlay's rival Caroline Elliott, and who was outwardly critical of Mr. Poilièvre's strategy and performance during the federal election campaign. Perhaps it was necessary for Mr. Poilièvre's own ego to publicly land the jab against Mr. Teneycke, but from the outside it looked like loser talk from a guy being forced to run through the girls' dorm wearing only women's underwear or a white cowboy getup. Fight, 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 fight. There's nothing more damaging to a political leader's image and his prospects than being perceived as weak. Weakness reaffirms your critics' worst opinions. Weakness makes your own team question your capabilities. Weakness creates an opportunity for your rivals to pounce. Weakness is losing your MPs, losing control of your caucus, and losing the plot. If this continues, Mr. Poilièvre will be out on the frat house lawn in nothing but his underwear. While I like the visual of him being out in the lawn, I don't think anybody needs to see Pierre in his underwear, not even Anna. So, oh, darn, did I just say that out loud? Gee, that's so petty of me. I wonder how that happened. Because I have no history of that at all. Right? Oh, man. Yeah. Things are not going well for Pierre Poilièvre right now. I'm thinking he's probably really happy that it's the summer right now. Because, man, oh boy, yeah, the news is not great for him. And again, Operation Keep Pierre Talking is working brilliantly. Some guy named Aaron Pete, who recently had an interview with Pierre, um, said, posted, I said this to Pierre Poilièvre. I don't understand how the floor crossings and this recent Senate announcement in any way reflects on his leadership. Clearly, something is being offered to these individuals. We don't know what, but I spoke to Billy Moran, ECN, and offers were made, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it's like one has to be willfully blind to not understand. It's like, and it gets back to this thing of people who assume that everybody else on the planet is as corrupt or underhanded or unethical as they are, can't imagine a world in which these individuals actually have agency and may have decided for themselves that they were better off elsewhere without being offered anything. If anything is offered, it's a work environment that's not toxic. Someone responded, cult members never understand why people want to escape. Ah, man. Other comments like, when Pierre Poilievre became leader of the opposition, there were 7 conservative premiers in Canada. A smart leader would have made friends with them all and used them to win the election. Poilievre did the opposite. He attacked them. Pierre Poilievre was always a dick. Pretty much. Pretty much. So yeah, there you go, kids and cubs. There's and then of course people laughing at him here. I can't be the only one that finds this guy talking about warrior culture wearing that costume absolutely hilarious. It's not just me, right? I mean, just look at Pierre Poilievre. He is here, uh, here in his all white Spirit Halloween cowboy costume, and tell me it's not funny. Well, you know what? Let's put it up there. A lot of people have made the hashtag blight in white satin trend as a result of what they saw here. So yeah, this is Pierre Poilievre clearly believing that this particular line was going to work for him in this particular context.
We will ensure that military spending goes to enhance capabilities to protect our country and support our troops. It will enhance war fighting. It will not fund bureaucracy or defense lobbyists. And we will reinstill a warrior culture, not a woke culture.
Okay. As he's got a branded cowboy hat with a gold conservative logo, as he's lifting words from Pete Keg's breath. I'm sorry. I just cannot take this seriously. I can't. Oh man. Kids and cubs. That's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like to offer us some support, we would be very grateful to receive it. One of the ways you can do that is by scanning this QR code, which will bring you to our YouTube page where you can click with our buttons like, share, and subscribe. If you're watching live, remember, if you click now, you don't have to remember to smash later. And if you are watching not live, but within 7 days of the original broadcast, and you're watching on a phone or tablet, if you swipe the comments section left, you can offer us some hype points, which helps smaller channels like us gain more viewership. And we thank you for all of your help in these matters. Of course, always share the content. And if you can include a little word why it is it resonates with you, that goes a long way. Other ways you can help us, Kits and Cubs, is if you believe that we deserve some financial support because you find that our work has value and you would like to encourage us to do more. We would appreciate a donation to the Eager Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund. Yes, fill our cup with beaver moistener in the form of hot chocolate for your favorite beaver because you are what you drink. Wink. Or a cup of dark coffee for Mr. Grizzly. To power him through the day. And if there's anything extra, then that goes back into the show for things like internet service fees and all that type of stuff. So we would definitely appreciate your donation when you send it to the Emergency Hydration Fund at our coffee page. That's coffeeko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. We get about 95 to 97% of your donation. You can also donate via stickers, super chat, and memberships on YouTube, where we get about 70%. And if you're doing the Buy Canadian thing right here, where you are not contributing to the US CE Tech Bros, a direct email transfer from your bank to ours via truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com ensures that we get 100% of your donation, and it's a win-win-win. Now, if you're not able to contribute financially, please do not worry, because the gifts of your attention and participation are the ones that matter the most to us, and we love to hear from you. And you can use that same email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, to let us know what you think about the show, suggest guests for the interview project. We always appreciate that. If you want to send us questions about politics that you would like us to answer, offer us some theme suggestions, questions about how we put the show together you would like us to answer, we love all of that. Of course, your good news to help us with the doom scrolling, we would really appreciate that. So that's where you can send it all, Kits and Cubs. Now, if you're looking for us on our socials, at True Eager at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge, also on the Jitter, True North Eager Beaver on Facebook. We have our Instagram run by Kit Uncover, who often does our clips. We have the unofficial Damn Fam Discord. We have our Beaver Bite Substack, and of course, our coffee page, coffee-ko-fi, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver. And right down here, if you're watching on YouTube, in our comment section, let us know what you think. We do try to answer. We do try to read everything. We're not able to answer everyone, but if you want us to see your comment, the best place to put it is in the comment section on the YouTube page. That's where we are most likely to see it, because that's where we are operating the most often. Let's see, what else have we got for you today? It would seem that, we do have our petitions, because democracy is something that you do. So let's take a look at that. The first one we have is House of Commons petition, ourcommons.ca petition. Just got to blow this up here so that I can see it better. E7395, which currently has 19,009 signatures. And this, the boost in signatures may have something to do with the fact that this one has received some profile in the press over the past couple of days. And it's the petition that has been started to call upon the House to stop funding Stornoway as an official residence. And I think it got picked up in the Globe and Mail specifically yesterday, also on CTV News, also CHEK News. Where else? I think that's the major ones here. So if we go to the Globe and Mail, because why not? Let's see how it is they covered this petition here. Ian Bailey wrote the article. Canada's tradition of providing residence for the official opposition leader is being targeted by a parliamentary petition advanced by a Victoria resident. As of Tuesday, Carol Berman's petition to stop funding Stornoway as a private residence for the opposition leader had received 14,831 signatures. The petition opened for signatures on May 1st. The option to sign closes on July 30th. So as of Tuesday, 14,831, and it gets some press. And just like that, kits and cubs, it grows to, just going to take a look again, make sure I got to the right number, 19,009. That's a significant jump. So yeah, sometimes it's just being aware that these things are going on and how well they can be publicized here. Miss Bourbon's arguments in the petition include that Canada is the only Western democracy to fund a residence for the official opposition. The House of Commons allows for petitions as a means of drawing attention to issues of public interest and to urge the government, ministers, MPs, or the Commons in general towards a certain course of action. Such petitions have to be sponsored by an MP. Located in the Rockcliffe Park area of Ottawa, Stornoway has been available to official opposition leaders in Canada since 1950, a year before 24 Sussex Drive was opened as a residence for Canada's Prime Minister. The 9,500 square foot home has 19 rooms. It includes a secondary building which serves as a two-car garage and a second-story loft. Ms. Berman, a retired human resources professional, said in an interview that she's concerned about reducing government spending. Asked about her politics, she said she did not vote for either the Conservatives or Liberals in the last federal election. She said cutting spending on Stornoway won't add up to much, but it's a good start to controlling costs. She added that she would rather have her taxpayer dollars go towards transmission lines, port expansions, or submarines. I'm sorry, I do not want to pay for the leader of the opposition, regardless of party, to have a chef, a chauffeur, a 9,500 square foot mansion that is private, not open to the public, she said. Quite frankly, that's why I did it. The Official Residences Act says the official opposition leader may appoint a steward or housekeeper and not more than 3 other employees to manage the residence. However, it is not clear how the residence is staffed. Stornoway's current residence is Conservative leader Pierre Poilièvre, who moved in with his family in 2022 after he was elected party leader. In 2021, the National Capital Commission released a report on Canada's official residences that said the 10-year average for Stornoway operations and maintenance funding was $78,505 for fiscal years 2010 and 11 to 2019-20. The document also said capital spending for that time period was $651,353. Jamie Innes, the spokesperson for the NCC, said in a statement that questions about staffing would have to be addressed to the opposition leader's office. The office of the official opposition leader did not respond to a request for comment on the petition. The NCC, in response to the questions from the Globe and Mail, said notable spending is required to deal with Stornoway. In the medium term, plans call for a significant recapitalization of the residence, Mr. Innes said in a statement. That effort, he said, is required to address deferred maintenance, update accessibility and sustainability in line with modern standards, and enhance the overall functionality of the residence. He did not specify how much these changes would cost. A previous statement issued by Commission spokesperson Cassandra Demers said last summer the NCC completed the rehabilitation of Stornoway's veranda, among other renovations, restoring a key heritage feature of the property. Ms. Berman's petition was sponsored by Elizabeth May, the leader of the Green Party. Ms. May said in an interview that Ms. Berman's approached her office for support and that as an MP, she supports the idea of a public discussion about spending priorities. Quote, it's particularly striking that there has never been any question at all that the leader of the official opposition's residence and staff and comfort is, without question, paid for by the public. Ms. May said the petition is timely given that the federal government has launched a public fundraising campaign to cover the costs of renovating 24 Sussex Drive. That residence has been closed since 2015 because of physical decline. Prime Minister Mark Carney instead lives at Rideau Cottage on the grounds of Rideau Hall, where the Governor General lives and works. The Rideau Hall Foundation, a charitable organization involved in amplifying the work of the Governor General, has been managing the fundraising effort. In a statement on Monday, the foundation spokesperson Jill Clark said the effort had raised $425,515 so far, including online donations and pledges under $25,000. During the Second World War, Stornoway was the home of the exiled Dutch royal family. In 1946, Senator Michael Grattan O'Leary kicked off an effort to locate a home for the leader of the opposition and raised funds that allowed the purchase of Stornoway for $55,000. George Drew, an Ontario premier who became Conservative leader, was the first resident in 1950. The federal government took ownership of the property in 1970. The NCC has managed the Federal Heritage Building since 1988. So there you go. A little bit of history on Stornoway as part of that petition. The other one that might be interesting to you, a little less political, maybe a little more patriotic, is that there is a band in Saskatchewan that started a petition to ensure that there is still some type of Saturday night hockey on CBC. One of the things that had been proposed is maybe that a PWHL match could now become Saturday night hockey rendezvous on CBC. But according to Karen Bliss of Now Toronto, there's a Saskatchewan rock band that says losing Hockey Night in Canada on free television threatens one of the country's most accessible sporting traditions and decided to do something about it. So we could look at this as a Canadians who make us proud as well as a democracy is something that you do moment. The June 16th news that CBC will no longer air Hockey Night in Canada after 74 years might have got lost in FIFA fever, but an independent rock band from Saskatchewan, the Blue Beach Band, is on a mission to get the public broadcaster and rights holder Rogers Sportsnet to go back to the table to negotiate an agreement for the cherished Saturday night tradition. The band, which just released its third album, Mulligan, set up a change.org petition that very day and quickly achieved their goal of 10,000 signatures. It has now surpassed 12,500. Rogers Sportsnet, which acquired national broadcasting rights to the NHL in 2013 for $5.2 billion and recently renewed them for another 13 years for $11 billion, beginning this October, was unable to come to an agreement with CBC, which had broadcast Hockey Night in Canada every Saturday since 1952. Quote, after a successful 12-year partnership, Sportsnet and CBC today announced the public broadcaster will no longer carry NHL broadcasts after the current season as it moves forward with a new sports programming strategy following the unprecedented success of the Milano Cortina Olympic Games, the statesman read. Blue Beach Band's Carter Vosper, lead singer, guitar, and petitioner, spoke with Now about the mission to bring it back. He goes, the interview says, you feel really passionate about this. It's not just because you have a new album out. No, I'll give you some context. We had been leaning really hard into our Canadian roots for this tour and this album. We've been wearing Hockey Night in Canada jerseys on stage and displayed archived Hockey Night in Canada footage at these shows. So we were wearing our Canadian hearts on our sleeves, and then about 3 days into the tour, the news broke, and we figured we could either hang our heads and change direction on this, or we could use the platform that we have and the advantage of being in a room with 200 like-minded Canadians every night as a way to try to garner support and raise concerns that we think that this is a bad decision for accessibility and hockey in general. Because I bet a lot of people don't even know. That's the thing. When we first started doing this petition, people were confused. They hadn't heard the announcement. It got brushed under the rug. I think that was intentional, that this Canadian tradition is disappearing. Obviously, the more people know about it, the more uproar there's going to be. So our goal with this is to just raise awareness and show that there's a lot of people who think that this is a bad decision and don't agree with it. And then he is asked, what are the repercussions of not having a Hockey Night in Canada on CBC? We're seeing hockey becoming more and more privatized every day, and this is just another nail in the coffin in terms of making hockey for everybody rather than a select group of people in Canada. Do you think the news got lost because of FIFA fever? Definitely part of it. It was some pretty skillful timing with the announcement. I think it's going to come time for next season, and people are going to go to turn on Hockey Night in Canada, and it's just not going to be there. It says, you've reached 10,000 and it's still going. What's your plan now? Now that we have over 10,000 signatures, we think we have enough legs to write to CBC and Rogers Sportsnet directly and say, this is all the people that we have behind us, and we want to find a way, whether that's going back to the drawing board, going back to the way it was, or lowering subscription costs, or maybe even something with the PWHL on CBC. We want hockey to stay accessible, and we just feel that a big part of the reason that Canada has been the hockey country for 74 years is because it's always been accessible on Saturday nights to anybody with a TV antenna. So the main goal with this is to just get their attention and send a message. And asked if they're still collecting signatures. Yes, and it's still growing. We have it set up as a QR code at our merch stand, so we're going to keep pushing it. Besides the obvious being Canadian, what's the reason you've been wearing Hockey Night in Canada jerseys on stage? We're super proud to be Canadian. We're inspired by bands like the Tragically Hip and April Wine, just classic Canadian rock bands. There's a lot of Saskatchewan-specific references across the new album. There's a lot of Canadian references, and the whole branding for the entire thing was hockey. We all grew up playing hockey. My girlfriend coaches hockey. We still play beer league. It's very much a part of our identity. So there you go, kits and cubs. So if you are interested in signing this petition, you can find it at change.org. Hopefully, here we go. I can bring it up. change.org/p/save-hockey night in Canada. that has a hyphen between it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and let go of the credits, and then when I come back, I'll bring it to you, and I'll be able to put a link up for you so that you can find it. So that's all I have for you, kits and cubs, at the moment. Did I do words of wisdom? I didn't do words of wisdom. If you have the opportunity to have friends over for dinner, like we did last night, do so. It's always a lovely time. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Roger, for making it a lovely night. It was wonderful to have your company. So yeah, have some friends over for dinner. Those are my words of wisdom. There you go. Connect. Right. It can be tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And now, kits and cups, at the count of 3, can I please have Mr. Beaver? Please cue the cock on 1, 2, and 3. Let me hear you. Oh, yeah, that's the good stuff. And since you did it so nicely, here's a little cock-a-doodle-doo just for you. Yeah, you, right there. Uh-huh. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, kits and cubs, just a little bit of news about some Canadians who make us proud. Number 1, the petition. Here we go. Well, that's not correct. Part of it is missing. So let me try that again, kits and cubs. I put that up there for you. This is more like it. There we go. That makes more sense. So there's the Save Hockey Night in Canada petition link in the chat for you if you want it. Some good news from Wimbledon for Gabriela Dabrowski, who won her match yesterday in doubles with her partner Luisa Stefani to advance to the semifinal, where they are favored to win that match. And at the other end of the draw, the number 1 team was still in it, and they played this morning and were defeated by the number 10 team, which means that if everything goes according to ranking, Gabrielle Dabrowski is now favored to win the doubles title at Wimbledon. Of course, there are still 2 matches to go through where they will face the number 13 seed in the semifinal, and then either the number 10 or number 10 seed, or maybe someone that's not seeded anyway. So yeah, in the final, there is a chance to maybe even face someone who is not seeded once you get to the final. So great progress there. Hopefully, there will be an opportunity once again making a semifinal in doubles at a Grand Slam, as was the case at the French Open for Gabriela Dabrowski. And a little bit of a couple more people who got some plaudits as part of being inducted into the Order of Canada. We have Cindy Kenny Gilday of Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, who's a leading Satu Deni advocate whose work exposed the devastating health and cultural impacts of uranium mining on her community in Great Bear Lake, Northwest Territories. She advanced Indigenous rights globally by helping to integrate traditional knowledge into international conservation policy and amplifying Indigenous voices in United Nations sustainability discussions. And then we have Tanita Murray, who's modernized Canadian police training and advanced global discussions on democratic policing. She strengthened security sector reform in Afghanistan and expanded her impact through policing and rule of law work with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime in Nairobi. She continues to shape international policing reform through her published research, and she is from Ottawa. And then we have Peter William Nickerson from Winnipeg, who's a world renowned clinical and transplant nephrologist, that's for kidneys. By developing innovative tools for the prediction, diagnosis, and prevention of accurate chronic transplant rejection and creating national programs for kidney paired donation and highly sensitized patients, he has helped elevate the quality of and access to care across the country. And finally, we have Stephanie Nolan from Halifax, Nova Scotia, who is a distinguished journalist and author. She has reported from more than 80 countries explaining inequities in health, conflict, and social justice. Renowned for her groundbreaking HIV/AIDS coverage in Africa, she has earned major national and international awards and has written acclaimed books on AIDS, art history, and women's roles in the space race. So there you go. More Canadians who make us proud, who were deemed Order of Canada worthy. That's all I got for you right now, kids and cubs. So I'm going to say amour et bisous, and we will see you tomorrow. Not sure if I will have a pre-record for you because I will not be in town, but hopefully I will be able to do something to have for you tomorrow. If not, there may not be a show tomorrow because I do have to get this done before I go today to have one in the banks for you. But I will keep you updated on our posts section on our YouTube page. Amour et bisous. And hopefully we will see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.